Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to talk about a few books that I've read fairly recently. It's just one of those reading wrap-ups that I'm not doing monthly because I don't want to. The first book that I'm going to talk about in this video is Thornfruit by Felicia Davin. You probably have not heard about this one at all. It has been on my e-reader or on my e-reader app for quite a bit. I feel like it's been a few years at least, and it's one of those self-published fantasy novels that I don't read often. The only self-published genre that I read a lot is romance, and I'm not opposed to other genres at all. I just never hear about these books on booktube, which is sad because this one was actually pretty great. This is the first novel in a fantasy trilogy, and it is about a girl named 𝕊𝕌ℙ𝕙𝕆ℝ𝕋. She is very talented and possesses a type of magic that no one else or not a lot of people possess. Magic is outlawed in a bunch of places in this world, and 𝕊𝕌ℙ𝕙𝕆ℏ𝕋 is kept a secret in the Varings house that is owned by a woman that basically works as her parental figure. 𝕊𝕌ℙ𝕙𝕆ℏ𝕋 can affect people by touch. She can see their memories, affect their memories, and touching her in general causes people physical pain. She can even murder people by touch. That's why she never touches people. And the only person that she can touch is her mistress. Mistress not as in lover, mistress as in the woman that cares for her. 𝕊𝕌ℙ𝕙𝕆ℏ𝕋 is very fascinated by the outer world, though she almost never is allowed to leave the Varings house. But one day as a child, she runs away to the main square, to the market, and she meets a girl named Ev, who gives her a thorn fruit. 𝕊𝕌ℙ𝕙𝕆ℏ𝕋 is brought back to the Varings house. She's caught by her mistress's guards. Her mistress uses her as someone who can affect other people's minds, who can figure out some bits of information here and there. So she's a very useful spy. People don't really like her. She seems strange to them because of her powers. They're scared of her. But in the back of her mind, there's Ev, the girl that was never scared of her. They meet again after 𝕊𝕌ℙ𝕙𝕆ℏ𝕋 fucks up one of her missions and decides to run off because she doesn't trust her mistress anymore. And Ev, who's a very generous, very responsible, very sacrificial type of heroine, decides to help her. I loved their dynamic. It's a future romance. Obviously they like each other. It's pretty much clear on paper, but they can't be together because of 𝕊𝕌ℙ𝕙𝕆ℏ𝕋's powers and in general because they are in danger. The storyline is interesting. There's a lot of suspense in it. The world building is fascinating and it's pretty full. It's not extremely complicated, but it's a full thought out world, which I loved. It was very original. I have not read similar things in the past, and it was exciting. I love the characters. I love the plot twists. I loved the character of 𝕊𝕌ℙ𝕙𝕆ℏ𝕋's mistress. I think she is a very fascinating type of character, fascinating personality. There were two timelines which kept things interesting and added to the suspense. The first timeline is the present timeline with 𝕊𝕌ℙ𝕙𝕆ℏ𝕋 and Ev, and the second timeline is told through a diary of some woman who we don't know. So a part of it is also trying to figure out who this person is, who's writing this diary, and what agenda do they have, who they're writing this diary for. Loved, very much loved. Not a 5-star for me, but a solid 4. And a good, unusual fantasy to read. I may actually pick up the second and the third book because I think we ended on a very interesting note. Some things were revealed that I'm excited about. I read 3 more books in the Plumbers Meet series. They were Relief Wolf, Hit Trap, and Blow Down. I've been marathoning these books and I am sad that they ended. I actually read more, but I'm going to talk about it in the future video because we don't wanna mess up the order, I mean. So the 3 books were all great. I love the series. They are my comfort zone. They are funny. They are pretty suspenseful. The crimes are interesting. It's cozy crime. The romance between Philip and Tom is great. It's realistically conflict heavy, not in the worst way possible, as in they're constantly fighting, but they both have insecurities even though they are together, and they're moving somewhere, which is great. Relief Wolf is about Tom's older sister Cherry, who hosts an engagement party for herself and her fiance, and where one of the guests dies from poisoning. Tom is present, Philip is present. One of them is sort of a psychic and the other one is a private investigator, so they are involved in the crime and they have to figure out what happened. The second book is my favorite still. Hit Trap is about a bar named Devil's Dyke, and I think it's a great name for a lady pirate who's sapphic. If someone wants to write about that, tell me because I'll read this book. Devil's Dyke is a bar that Tom and Philip frequent, and they also are friends with the owner, who is the Devil's Dyke. That's why the bar is called that. She has a tendency of taking in girls that have nowhere to go and protecting them, and one of her barmaids is in trouble. Her ex-boyfriend is stalking her, and her family is horrible. They're very homophobic, so she cannot go back. And she needs a job, so she takes her in. But the boyfriend continues to stalk her, and he even comes to the bar constantly. So the girl is scared for her life. So the owner hires Philip to investigate if there is some kind of a dirt on the guy that they can use to blackmail him so he won't show his face again in the bar. There's murder, there's suspense, there's drama. It's my favorite book in the series. The next book that I read in the series was Blow Down. And Blow Down is about Tom becoming a little bit famous for his unusual talents. Tom can find things that were hidden on purpose, and he's asked by his sister Cherry to demonstrate his talents and skills at a fair because she wants to get into the graces of the local prissy woman. We're not going to get into details why, but she needs it. So Tom agrees. During the fair, one of Tom's clients, he's also a plumber on the side, or I guess he's a psychic on the side, you get it, dies, and he's blamed for it. So he has to figure out what to do, what happened, etc, etc. It's fun, it's good. I'm more of a lover of Hit Trap and the next book in the series, but I still enjoyed this one. Then I picked up Guilty Creatures by Mikita Brottman, which is a non-fiction true crime. I, to be quite honest with you, was just looking for an easy audiobook to listen to because I had a lot of stuff that I had to do manually. So I picked this one up and I didn't regret it. I don't remember much of it. It was fascinating in the moment, but when it comes to remembering what exactly happened, I wouldn't be able to do it. And that is how I feel about most true crime nonfiction. I like it in the moment, I find it fascinating, I'm entertained as much as I can find true crime entertaining, you know what I mean. I want to listen to it, I'm compulsed, but at the end I don't remember much. I remember the plot, but I don't remember the details. Basically it's about a missing husband named Mike. He was a devout Baptist, as his wife and their friends. They were two pairs of best friends. They got married after high school and continued to spend time together. There were never many conflicts between them, and Mike and his wife Denise seemed to be living the picture-perfect life, except Mike worked a lot and Denise was feeling like he's neglecting her with the baby, because she had a baby. Then in the 2000s, Mike disappeared during a duck hunt in the woods, and they couldn't find much evidence surrounding the issue and decided that it was just an accident and crocodiles ate him. But at the end, it turned out that of course there is more to the story, and Denise and Mike were not perfect for each other. We're not perfect church-going Baptists, and we're not keeping each other happy. They had a lot of marital issues, they had conflicts with their friends, with their morals, with a lot of things. The writing style is very easy to comprehend. The author does a good job of managing the timelines and the evidence. I liked it. I would read more from the author. I know that he has more true crime non-fictions, but it's not the type of read that I particularly care about, as in I will read it, I will find it fascinating, but I won't remember it at the end of the day. The next book that I barely finished, it took a lot of effort from me, was Can Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. I feel like I've talked about it a lot already on my channel. The problem with it is that it's in the genre that I decided that I don't love. It's cozy fantasy with a side of sapphic romance, and sapphic romance in this case did not help much, because I just hate cozy fantasy. I need conflict, I need something to happen. I read books not to get bored and to sleep through them. I read books for excitement and adventure, and if there's nothing in it that keeps my attention, then why am I reading it? I can do something different. I have a lot of things on my plate, always. So this book committed a crime of boring me to sleep, and also being way too long for what it wanted to do. If you read this book, tell me if you liked it, if you genuinely like cozy fantasy, because I decided that I don't. I've read a few cozy fantasies, and some of them are better, but they usually have something more to offer, and they're not the clear-cut cozy fantasy, if you know what I mean. The next book I loved, and it was also our Feeble book club pick. I'm so grateful that one of the readers suggested it. It's Undying by Kiersten White. Now, you know that I love Kiersten White. I think she has a very beautiful way with words. She's very poetic, though she doesn't write poetry as far as I know. It's not overly flowery, but it's beautiful. I love how her brain works, the similes that she uses, the way she compares and contrasts. It just works for me. I don't know how it is for other people, but I feel like we would vibe in real life. Kiersten White is brilliant. She has a brilliant mind, in my opinion. She can keenly sense the nuances of the story, the nuances of a person. Her characters are very fascinating always, and she tends to write very cool female protagonists because they're humans, they're people, and they are exceptional and at the same time regular women that are allowed to have flaws. Undying is a retelling of the Dracula by Bram Stoker from the point of view of Lucy Westenra. It's also not just the Dracula part of the story, it's at the same time, because there are quite a few time lapses and timelines in this story, it's at the same time Lucy's story after Dracula, because this retelling imagines what would have happened if Lucy survived and how would she cope with the situation, with being a vampire, obviously, but also with being turned specifically by Dracula, her relationship with Dracula, her relationship with the outer world, the world changing around her, etc., etc. I have to say that Lucy is an exceptional character. She is so sarcastic, so funny, without even intending to be sarcastic and funny. Lucy is my favorite part about the story, and it's not the first time I fall in love with Kiersten White's characters. In the present timeline, Lucy is compelled by this woman named Iris. Iris is a young woman that runs off from her family. Her mother dies. Maybe she helped her, we don't know. Iris runs off to cede her properties that she inherited and to not be involved in her family's MLM shady business, but she is constantly followed. She starts living in a very old, decrepit house, and she attracts the attention of Lucy. A lot of weird shit is happening around them. We don't know their identities and who they are in the whole scope of the story, so it's very suspenseful. You have to be patient and allow the story to click together, sort of. But their relationship and the story itself, the plot, the variety of different elements that at the end just, you know, click together were brilliant. It's a brilliant book. It's also really, really long. It's 500 pages, but I read it like that. I feel like we all enjoyed the experience of reading it in our book club. It's really, really good. Then I finally checked out Freida McFadden, and I have to say that the hype is real. She's pretty great. I decided on The Teacher, which was a very random pick. I just had the audiobook downloaded on Everand. So one day I was walking outside and decided that I want to listen to the audiobook and picked this one. This is about a woman named Eve, who by her own description is not a very attractive woman, but who is quite accomplished in her career. She is a teacher, and who has the perfect husband named Nate. She hates him so much because of how they are constantly compared, how everyone is obsessed with him, how everyone believes that she doesn't deserve him because he's so hot. So they don't have a particularly stable marriage, but they're still holding on. And at the same time, they work in school together, and there's conflict there as well because one of the students was allegedly in a relationship with a professor who was fired because of it. And they both know him, and Eve is the guy's friend. I'm gonna be honest, if you read a lot of crime novels, you expect things to turn a certain way, but this actually surprised me a lot. Like a lot. I was quite sure in certain moments that the story is going to turn in a way that I expect, but it didn't. I think Freida McFadden knows how to work with expectation, knows how to twist the story, knows how to surprise you, which I really appreciated because it's really hard. It's one of those genres where if you read 20, 30 books, you already know what's gonna happen because there is a limited amount of plots and character types and tropes, but she does a really great job in the story, and I do recommend it if you're tired of same old crime novels. I really liked it. It's not very gory. It's sort of middle of the road in terms of violence. The characters are fun and the story is engaging. It's really hard to surprise me when it comes to crime novels because at this point I've seen so many shows. Crime genre in terms of TV, it's my bread and butter. That's all I watch. So I'm used to those plot twists, but she's a genius and I'm going to read her more. The second to last book on the list that I'm going to cover today is Cleat Cute by Meryl Wilsner. I really enjoyed this. Meryl Wilsner is surprising me. Meryl Wilsner is winning me over. I hated the first book by this author, but the second and the third, they eat. Cleat Cute is not as good as her previous, but I gave it 4 stars. I love the characters, I love the setting, and it was scorching hot. I needed to swallow. I immediately put it on my list of spicy sapphic novels that you absolutely need to read. Part 2. If you have not seen my part 1, what are you even doing here? I'm surprised. Cleat Cute is an adult sports sapphic romance. It follows 2 characters that are professional athletes. They both play soccer. One is Grace, who's been on the US women's national team for a bit. She's sort of a veteran and she has a leg injury that she doesn't tell about other people. And Phoebe, who is a newbie, she just joined. She's overtly excited. She's a bit of a puppy. She wants to be friends with everyone and she's obsessed with Grace. She followed Grace's career since she was a teen herself, and now she has a chance to play with Grace. And Grace is not an easy nut to crack, so to speak. She's very icy. She doesn't like Phoebe that much, but they have to train together, so they become closer. First as friends, then as friends with benefits, then as something more. It is hot, it is fun. I really liked it. I think it's a really solid sports romance. It was fun to follow these characters. I wasn't bored. There was something in every chapter that made me keep going. What Meryl Wilsner became good at, in my opinion, in these 2 last books, is writing chemistry and writing dialogue. I believe that these people wanted each other, that they were obsessed with each other, that they had reasons to be together. I also loved all the little details about their personalities. They were interesting characters to follow. I wasn't ever bored. I loved it. And when I say the sex scenes were so scorching hot, I'm not joking. There is literally chapter or even chapter and a half that is 1 act. I won't even say which act. It plays on my mind sometimes. Anyway, loved it. Some people compare it to Ted Lasso, and I think the author said that they were inspired by it a little bit, but I don't think that it's such a clear-cut comparison. It's somewhat similar in that Grace is a veteran in the team and that she has a leg injury, but otherwise I don't think there are many similarities. The last book that I'm going to talk about is one that I loved. I gave it 5 stars. It's definitely one of those books that was written specifically for the type of person with my tastes. It's Death in the Spires by K.J. Charles. It is historical crime with dark academia elements and some queer romance. So this was perfect. K.J. Charles loves me. Well, she doesn't know I exist. I love her and she loves me through her work. She constantly pumps out things that I enjoy. She is just attuned to my taste. The story is set in 1905 and follows a guy named Jeremy who comes from very modest means. He works for a guy, but 10 years ago he had an opportunity to go to Oxford and met a bunch of influential people. They were friends, everything was fun and cool, and he finally felt like he somewhat belonged, but then something terrible happened and one of their friends named Toby tragically died. The police didn't figure out who was the culprit and the case remained cold. So 10 years after the murder, the crime is still hovering over their heads. They don't talk to each other anymore, but Jeremy receives a letter from an anonymous person that claims that he, Jeremy, was the one that murdered Toby, and he gets fired from his job. he really needed it. So he is fed up with this whole thing, and he comes back to Oxford and visits his old friends to finally figure out what happened to Toby and who murdered him. This is really twisty. It's very atmospheric. The dark academia part of it was very well done. I would love to watch this movie because I think it would make a great movie. The characterization was great. All the characters had very distinct personalities. I loved the mystery element. I thought that it wasn't so simple. I loved the twists and turns. I loved that when we were almost close to figuring out who did it, the story would turn on its head, and we either won't feel bad about something that happened, or it would simply lie to us and the mystery wouldn't be solved. I think K.J. Charles did something really right with this one. I think the blend of genres was perfect, and I highly recommend it to all my historical buffs and historical crime buffs out there because I loved it. These are all the books that I wanted to talk about in this video. There are more to come. I made a bit of a break from booktube, as I usually do. In the comments down below, tell me about the books that you enjoyed reading recently, and the ones that you can recommend to me, because why not? And on this note, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you soon with another one, but until then,